Welcome to the December 4th, 2018 episode of Reactive Consciousness, our in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I am your host, Lotus Prince, and this is...
PyroJackFrost.
And OldManStompy.
Welcome. It's been a little while since you guys have been in the same room.
Again.
Yeah, just every time. And this week we have Fakaphon and Dracologist, the OG3. Like, alright, why not? Just every single time. But, yeah, we have a rather interesting discussion this time, I think. And you'll never believe this for Reactive Consciousness, but it's topical. We're not going to talk about, like, Bond movies for 10 minutes this time. Actually, the first thing we were going to discuss, Pyro, I think you wanted to go into this, was Pokemon Let's Go, Eevee and or Pikachu?
Well, yeah, so first of all, I got a Switch over Thanksgiving weekend.
Nice.
I figured it's about time that I picked it up. I know I was going to get one when Shin Megami Tensei 5 came out, but with Smash coming out this week and with Let's Go getting a lot of like rave reviews, I figured I'd pick one up. So
actually, just real quick regarding SMT, like 1 and 2 were on what, the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom?
So, I don't know if you're getting at this, but all of the mainline Mega 10 games have been on Nintendo platforms.
Oh, well, actually, by coincidence, that wasn't what I was getting on. But I was just going to say, it's like a real long time between SMT games, because, like, 3 was, what, Nocturne on PS2, and then 4 kind of just came out, like, on the 3DS?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, so wasn't, at one point, Strange Journey sort of tagged SMT4, and then they actually made an SMT4?
Oh, was that
so I think... because Strange Journey was a little experimental, they didn't want to call it 4, but a lot of fans were calling it 4, and SMT was not like confident, or Atlas I should say was not confident that it could be number 4, and then when it did okay, I mean I don't think it did stellar, but then they decided to just make an actual 4. Okay. And they made actually 2 4s because they made a second version of 4 with a whole different character.
Oh, it was like Apocalypse or something?
Apocalypse, yep.
Yeah. So
which makes sense. Like Persona 2 had that duology.
Yeah,
too,
I was
right?
just going to say, they're like
common, but
each half, yeah.
But it's interesting, like I know this is a tangent, but because I think the reason why they wanted the actual version of 4 to be 4 is because the combat system is back to like the original combat system, wherein Strange Journey it kind of was, but it was more of a dungeon crawler than a normal RPG, let's say.
Okay. But anyway, semi-related to catching demons and having them work for you, Pokemon?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, Mega 10 did take the idea from Pokemon, right?
Yeah, boy.
It went the other way, right? Like, I'm not
No,
actually...
it did go, yes, Pokemon came out second.
Yeah, this is just like last week, where it's like, I can't believe that, what was it, Romance of the Three Kingdoms ripped off of Magic the Gathering.
Oh, God. And, technically, if you read the history from my understanding of it, Pokemon was created not without any knowledge of Mega 10, but kind of independent of it, let's say. Like they didn't take the idea of capturing demons from Mega 10 and be like, we should make a game like that with animals.
Yeah.
The guy who made Pokemon had the idea by itself.
Mega 10 wasn't really built to be like a merchandising powerhouse like Pokemon was, and it didn't have the idea that you had to catch all the demons.
Correct.
Yeah.
Actually, it's really better off if you don't.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes me think of I forgot what the other game was called, but have you guys heard of Perception on PC?
No.
Well, that and another game were coincidentally being developed at like very close in proximity to each other, and both of them like would have been, I think, the first of their kind, like a horror game where you're blind and you have to like deal with like sounds like in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie where like waves kind of produce pictures, and it's just what a shame they were both built like right next to each other, so it's like, is one copying the other? And it turned out no, it was just really weird timing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, back to
Yeah.
the
Oh
original
yeah.
conversation. I was thinking of like what games to get. I know this isn't really the conversation. Maybe I'll mention this later. But Pokemon Let's Go has been like a huge hit, and I think it's because one, the same reason why X and Y I think were a huge hit is it brings back the original, like not necessarily just the original 151, but the idea of the original Pokemon games, the Red and Blue games. Like X and Y did really well because a lot of people saw this as a callback to the original. Yes, they did have all the Pokemon, and I picked up X because of that. And the same with Let's Go is, I mean, technically it is Yellow. If you remember Yellow, where you start with Pikachu.
Yeah, and you can get the starters later, I guess.
And you can get all the starters like through the story.
And you actually fight Jesse and James as opposed to just like generic Team Rocket members.
Oh, yes. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, they're in it. And they are also incompetent. And it's actually really funny. I was reading an article about it, how it's kind of hilarious in a way, because you think that in the cartoon, it's just Team Rocket is like stupid, and Jesse and James are just the ones that Ash always encounters. But in the game, like, no, Jesse and James are just dumb. And all the other Team Rocket members are really, really competent at their job.
Well, no, there was actually an episode I remember that, like, I mean, you don't see all of Team Rocket or anything, but you saw a different duo of Team Rocket. And, like, this is an old episode because I actually saw it. So it must have been in, like, the first 2 seasons. But, like, you know how Jesse and James, if you put it together, is the name of, like, an old famous, like, cowboy, like Jesse James?
Yeah.
There were Butch and Cassidy. And it turned out that not only are Jesse and James royal screw-ups, as we all knew, but apparently they'd been saying the Team Rocket rhyme wrong the whole time, like to protect the world from devastation. They're like, no, we're the bad guys. Like, it was pretty funny.
But yeah, so like I think another reason why Pokemon Let's Go is a hit, and one reason why I might be picking it up, is it technically because it simplifies a lot of the mechanics. So one of the things that I don't like about Pokemon, which a lot of people do, is grinding. So I don't like having to go into walk around grass all the time to encounter the certain Pokemon I want, and or like make sure I'm leveling up my characters over and over by defeating all these Pokemon. Or what I started adding in later games is like not just stats, like Fire Emblem kind of starting stats where they're randomized, but also the like the personality. I don't know if that's what it's actually called, but the personality of the Pokemon is random, and the gender can be random. So there's so many different Pokemon you can potentially capture.
I didn't know that personality was... I mean, I've only played like freaking RBY, so it's kind of course I don't know anything, but I didn't know that Pokemon personality like was a thing in the game.
It affected their stat growth, as far as I recall.
Huh.
So it affects stats. Every personality has like one stat that it boosts by like 10% and one that it lowers by 10%.
Oh,
so
okay.
Usually, like if you want a special attacker, for example, you'd want the one with the personality that boosts special attack and lowers regular attack, because that way the negative aspect like completely
doesn't affect
yeah,
it.
it's like playing a magic user instead of a fighter. Like, you don't care about strength at that point.
But while I don't think gender and breeding on personalities are in Let's Go, mainly because it's based off of Yellow, but also the other things have been simplified. One is you can see Pokemon in the field, and you basically have to walk up to them and touch them to encounter them.
Oh, so
that's the
like,
first thing.
That's like some old school like NES like RPGs.
Well, no, I mean, most RPGs in NES you could not see anything; it's just random encounters.
Maybe. Oh, you know what? No, I'm thinking SNES. I'm thinking Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which was specifically designed to be like RPG easy mode.
Easy mode, yeah. So that's one thing. Two is a typical battle in Pokemon is basically what it's like in the cartoon, where you encounter a Pokemon in the wild and you just try to capture it. That's it. There's no fighting. There's no like there's battles, but you battle other trainers. You don't just battle random Pokemon in the wild.
Wait, is this like Pokemon Go, where like you just try to catch the thing?
Well, that's why it's called Pokemon Let's Go.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I heard that Let's Go was basically like enhanced Pokemon Go.
I wouldn't call it enhanced, right? Because like enhanced Pokemon Let's Go is playing Pokemon Go outside, right? Like
fair
Pokemon
enough.
Let's Go, you're like actually playing Pokemon Go inside a Pokemon game.
Oh.
Yeah, because like capturing is similar, where there's you basically use the Switch controllers to throw a Pokeball and try to capture it.
Yeah.
technically, again, another connection is you can transfer Pokemon from Go into Let's Go.
Oh,
I've
wow.
heard that process. I've heard the process is really, really atrocious.
That sounds like Nintendo.
and also you cannot, like, the Pokemon are actually transferred, so you can't put them back into the Go.
Is it like like old school Pokemon, like Red, Blue, and Yellow, where you gotta like hook up your phone to your Switch with like a wire?
I think it still connects over the internet, but it's still kind of ridiculous how like the whole process of it is more or less is more annoying than it needs to be, and less intuitive. But so the other thing about the game that kind of makes it better is whenever you capture a Pokemon, all of the other Pokemon that you currently have in your party gain experience.
Oh, that's great. That's really great.
So not only are you not grinding, well, you are grinding because you still have to capture, let's say, a lot of Pokemon, but you just capture them. There's no fighting. It's just like, can I capture this? Cool. All my Pokemon get experience. And then you only need to worry about fighting with other trainers. And then the other thing that's nice is, if you ever remember from a Pokemon game, whenever you capture more Pokemon than you can hold, they go into I forget what it's called, the computer, and then you have to go to a computer to actually access that. But in Pokemon Let's Go, you basically always have access to your computer.
Oh, okay. So it's basically
you can always
like
change your Pokemon
super
out.
Large inventory. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can always change it out.
That's great.
Really, really useful. There's probably a lot of other things that I saw that people like. Oh, one, you can encounter both Gary and Ash.
Oh.
And Pokemon Green, who's like a female Pokemon trainer that has really only been shown on like promotional art.
Yeah.
Whatever, because there was never a green. I guess.
Well, there was
Japan,
going to be, but I think it got like canceled.
Well, no, in Japan there was red and green.
Yeah.
And in America there was red and blue.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we got Red and Green as the remakes of Generation 1,
right,
attached to Ruby and Sapphire, but
they
still
Fire,
have
Red,
Ash
and
and Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Green was a character in Sun and Moon. There was a battle tree where you could fight like Legendary Trainer Red, Legendary Trainer Blue, Legendary Trainer Green. I remember seeing a MAME image of like what they look like having gotten off the plane to Hawaii. Like Ash had Pikachu in like a front loaded like a carry harness, like a baby. It was pretty funny.
I heard that like you fight Blue and Green, so Gary and Green, like normally in the story, but like Ash, you had to go through not all these hoops, but he's like apparently like one of the hardest battles in the game, if not the hardest.
Sure.
Which makes sense, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like a lot of people love this game because the callbacks to Red and Blue, because it simplifies the process a lot. And it actually makes it tough because I got a Switch. The only other things that I got for my Switch were Labo, because I like building things.
Yeah.
Plus, Best Buy was having an awesome deal during that weekend where you could get 2 Labo kits for $100 total. So they're basically $40 off each.
Nice.
Which is pretty awesome, or like $30 off each. So I just have that, but I'm unsure about like what game I want to buy first. Like I'm deciding between Let's Go, because I'm like a small Pokemon fan. Like I love the idea. Like Eevee is one of my favorite Pokemon, but I'm not like huge into the games because it can just be a grind. But I'm deciding between Mario Odyssey, Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, and Legend of Zelda, and it's really a tough choice. I know, it's really a tough choice. I want to play all of them. I don't know which one to start with. I don't know if any of you, like, I don't know what any of you heard about Let's Go, or if you had anything to mention about your Pokemon knowledge and understanding, but...
Yeah, I'd like to talk about this a little bit. My wife picked the game up the day it came out, and she's been playing it on and off. So at first, I had the same opinion that I expressed earlier, that like, why would I play this game? I already play Pokemon Go occasionally. Why would I buy a game in which I could play Pokemon Go, which is also a remake of a game that I've already played like 5 times, right? Mm-hmm. Because this is like the third or fourth time, if you count, depending upon whether or not you count Yellow as like a separate remake or a new version.
Well, I would count this as like a remake of Yellow, but still, then you can consider Yellow a remake of Red and Blue. So it's a remake of a remake of a remake.
Fire Red and Leaf Green, which are like remakes of Red and Blue. More or less in a different generation. you know, and then I watched her play the game, and I realized, like, this is actually the kind of Pokemon game that I would always want to play, and the only thing holding me back is the fact that it is actually just a remake of Red and Blue, which I guess they did because it's pretty experimental and really safe. But, like, there's been this trend in Pokemon lately, like, moving towards the generations, of taking all these, like, systems, which are intended for hardcore players, and which are, like, really obfuscated from the player, and making them easier to handle, so that the game isn't getting in your way if you really want to, like, grind for perfect EVs. Like, now you don't have to go and find the person who judges your Pokemon for you to find out if you have all perfect, you know, stats. That it'll just tell you. There's like a judge function on the box. It'll tell you if you have max of every stat or like which ones are maximum.
In Let's Go.
In Let's Go, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And of course, like, grinding is actually kind of fun, you know, because the only reason you'd ever, like, sit in an area and grind a lot of random battles is if you want to catch a shiny Pokemon.
Yeah. Do they have shiny in Let's Go?
Yeah. So just to double click on something that Pyro said earlier, they do have things like gender and everything. Like, all the systems that are present in the old game are still present now. They're not, like, fully taken advantage of, but they're not going to roll back all the things that have changed in Pokemon.
Gotcha.
Just because they made a new game. I remember commenting on this because, like, the starters, I think it's male and female. The starters are almost always male because when you breed Pokemon, the female determines the species of the baby. So they make it hard to get female starters, so that it's harder for you to like breed a whole bunch of them for trading. Anyway, the big thing is that for the last few generations, they didn't really make this public for a while. I think actually one of the developers put this in as like a chaining method. But if you encounter the same Pokemon over and over again and try to catch it, you get like a catching chain. And this has been present in the games for a few generations now, but this is the first time it's like really obviously a game mechanic where they display it on a screen when you catch it. And like at 30 or something, 30 in a row, you have like a significantly boosted chance of getting a shiny. And like that's really easy to do now that you don't have to, you're not like at the mercy of the random battle system plus whatever other like little widgets they put on top of it to make it slightly easier to encounter the same thing in a row. Now you just go look for the one thing that you want, and I think you can actually buy a lure that like only makes the last thing that you encountered spawn.
That's nice.
And, like the only weird thing is that it's actually like really funny, and you get anxious about it too, because like if you've played the games before, you know where things generally are, and like as you're playing through the game, like things will show up that you weren't expecting to find. Like you'll see the starters when they were never catchable before in the past, like in the wild. At least not. I mean, in X and Y, yes, they were catchable in the wild, but in Red and Blue they never were. So you'll be like trying to chain your Caterpie so you can get a shiny Butterfree, and then all of a sudden you see a Bulbasaur, and you're like, oh god, do I go get the Bulbasaur now? I'm not going to see a Bulbasaur again. And so my wife, she was chaining Ghastlies. She was trying to get a shiny Ghastly to make a Gengar. And like Chansey started showing up in that dungeon, and she's like, "Oh my god, Chansey, what are you doing here?"
Yeah, wasn't Chansey like Safari Zone only back in the day?
Yeah,
yes,
like
in
that.
Red and Blue is Safari Zone only. It shows up as a rare spawn in a bunch of areas as early as like Mount Moon in this game. But it's still like really shocking when you see it the first time, because you're like, "Wait, I don't know if this is a 0.1% spawn and I got really lucky,
well,
or if it's going to show up all the time now."
Well, yeah, I haven't played Pokemon in a million years, but like that something like that would still throw me off. It's just like, shouldn't I not be like a pincer? Like, shouldn't I not be seeing you right now? Like that really would get me to like question my motivation. Like, what should I be? Should I just drop it right now and just get it?
So it's brought back like the fun of just walking around the areas. Like you don't have to encounter anything. You can run away from everything. You only have to encounter the trainers. You get more than enough experience because all your Pokemon level up at the same time. So you can pretty much steamroll the game as long as you're like spent at least a little bit of time in every area.
Like how quickly do Pokemon gain experience and levels? Like, is it like if you were to be grinding for shiny Pokemon, would they basically become like really high level because of that?
I haven't seen them become like insanely high level.
Okay.
Like if you're grinding for shinies, that caps out at 30, and you can run away after that. You don't lose your chain. So you're encouraged to like get up to 31 and then just run away until you see the shiny one. So there's no like reason to like, why would you waste your Pokeballs if it doesn't actually benefit you in any way, if you didn't get what you wanted.
That's good.
So you wouldn't like grind hundreds and hundreds of them anyway, unless you were going for the perfect stats.
Yes, true. And if it's like I'm thinking, you don't need perfect stats to be anywhere near Like,
well, yeah. See, you never like the stats are largely the difference between perfect and not perfect stats is pretty small. You know, it's maybe 5 to 10% of a Pokemon stats roll. So it really doesn't matter unless you're planning on playing competitively. I don't even know if you can play competitively.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, I would bet that option is there. I just haven't explored it.
Okay.
The only I might have gotten the game, except I'll be honest, I'm sick to death of Generation 1. I play Pokemon Go. I used to play it a lot back in the day when it was really big, and it's had a bit of a resurgence because they've added some new features. They've added in like raids and friend lists and trading. They're going to do PvP soon. And every time I try to get back into it, because I stopped playing around the time they started releasing Generation 3, and now they just started releasing Generation 4. And every time I try to play to catch some of the new stuff that's come out since the last time I played, there's always a Generation 1 event going on. And all I see is, like, fucking Pikachu and Eevee. So, like, yeah, this time it was a release event for Pokemon Let's Go. So it was just Pikachu and Eevee everywhere. And all I wanted to do was catch, like, Mudkip and, like, Turtwig and Chimchar and, like, all the starters from Gen 3 and 4 so I can get evolved versions of them. So, I don't know. I think that they push it a little bit too hard towards the older crowd. I really don't think it's necessary. I remember Generation 5, Black and White, you know, they made this whole big deal about how all of the Pokemon were new in the new area. There was 151 new Pokemon, but like every single one of them looked exactly like, or was like a clear like mapping to something that was in Generation 1. There was like another garbage Pokemon that was like Grimer, there was like another gas Pokemon, there was another bug, there was another pigeon thing, you know, there was another Magikarp. Yeah, so I would love for them to make a new Pokemon game with the same combat style as Pokemon Let's Go. I wouldn't even mind if that was like the definitive random battle like methodology for the rest of Pokemon.
Yeah, I could see if they were to make a Pokemon Let's Go that was, let's say, Generation 2, and I don't think they. Well, I guess they did. Didn't Generation 2 also have a yellow version?
So all of the generations had something extra, like either a third game or now lately they've been doing actual sequels, except for X and Y.
So yeah, if they were to do something like that, like a sequel to Let's Go that was in the Generation 2 region, let's say, and you had another couple of Pokemon you could choose as your starter, let's say, I could see really enjoying that. Assuming I enjoy Let's Go, let's say, I don't own it yet, but I could really see enjoying that because it kind of makes it fun again to me, and it's more of like what I feel like Pokemon is about. Like if Pokemon were real, right? You wouldn't be. I could see it as just you capturing them and fighting them. I mean, I know that's like basically illegal, but you know what I'm saying.
Capturing them. I mean, like Pokemon is basically cockfighting. You know.
Yes.
Well, it is. It's interspecies cockfighting. Yeah. Except you play with a fucking dragon against somebody's like dog.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, I could see the mechanics of Let's Go are more true to the nature of the game. Even though it takes a lot of the RPG stuff out in terms of the random battles, like that.
I mean, yeah, like the human on human trainer battles are still there, and the legendary like scripted Pokemon, like the Snorlax fight and the birds, you still fight those before you get the chance to capture them, which is actually really nice because instead of having to like get them all the way down to 0, like not quite dead, and then throwing Pokeballs at them. You just fight them regularly, and then you do the Pokemon Go style catching.
Yeah, that's the great... Like, that's what it should have been the whole time. Because, like, it was so stressful. Love tapping, like, an Abra, and hoping you don't kill it or it leaves. Like, just pound it until it gets into a dazed state, and then do the thing, like, as a finisher move.
I will say that Abra is still really hard to catch in Go and Let's Go. If you have one chance to throw a ball at it, and if it doesn't get in the ball, it runs away.
Oh, man.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty annoying, but
by the way,
whatever.
Regarding the random battles versus that's no longer a thing, we had mentioned random battle, or the going and looking for the Pokemon is nice in terms of which Pokemon you fight, but what's also nice about that is that the random battle's timing is effectively random too, so you could finish a battle and take a couple steps and enter another battle and be in like a Skies of Arcadia situation where it's like I just want to leave and you can't. It's like it's that like that. Pokemon I don't think ever got that bad, but like it could be frustrating.
Well, I kind of. I know that whatever that mountain with the Zubats is, was always... Mount Moon was always the most annoying area in the original Pokemon because Pokemon's, like, Zubats... you encounter them very, very often.
Yeah.
And, like, all you encounter are Zubats, but now in Mount Moon and Let's Go, you can see all of them. Sure, there might be a lot of them. I don't remember if there are, but you can see them, so you can avoid them the whole time.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
And Zubat is, like, an incredible pain in the ass to catch, like, Go style. I don't know what it is. Like, in the original release of Pokemon Go, there was something about Zubat's model that, like, it just wasn't as big as it looked like. You would miss it all the time. And I don't know. I'm sure they made it a little bit less annoying in Let's Go because you aren't actually the motion controls like aren't great, you know, but they're not as annoying as using a phone screen or a tablet screen in regular.
What do you do for the phone? Like flick your finger forward?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, someone actually like original. So if you like do a curve, it throws a curveball, and like early on, it was so sensitive that someone actually sold like a screen that you lay over your phone that keeps your finger like moving straight up and down so that you can throw straight at the Pokemon.
That is my one complaint about Let's Go is that you can only use motion controls to capture Pokemon. Yeah. I mean, granted, like I said, that's probably more true to the actual nature of the idea behind it, but it'd be nice if the same reason why a lot of people got annoyed with Skyward Sword, I think it was, I don't want to have to swing my Wiimote around all the time just to play the game.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. It's not like No More Heroes where you, like, waggle the Wiimote a bit for a finisher. Like, all you do in Zelda games is swing your sword. Like, could you not?
Well, so if you play the Switch in handheld mode, then you don't flick the whole Switch to catch the Pokemon. You aim it like a camera, and then you push a button to catch them.
Gotcha.
So it's a little bit less obnoxious. But you can't do that. Yeah, you're basically playing you're basically going for the zero Pokeball. You can't do that on a television. You have to use the motion controls.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately,
that is one thing. I mean, this is getting off, but like, I would like to see Fatal Frame on the Switch. That'd be amazing.
I'm not surprised. I'm sure if they feel like making another one, I don't know how well that Fatal Frame 5 did on the Wii U.
Well, 5 had zero marketing in America, and it wasn't physical, so no one could see it, so I don't think it did great.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know about Japan, but in America...
I don't know what their target was. Some of these games, like, their target is only, like, 50,000 or 100,000 copies, and you can get that just from, like, good word of mouth.
That's true. But not to mention, by the way, Fatal Frame 5 in particular was pretty sensitive subject material, like, even for a rated M game, so, like, that might still cause people to balk. Like, parts of that game were no joke. So, like, I mean, it was interesting, but... Yeah, like, when nobody talks about it, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, well, you know, we'll see. I'm sure this will be one of the first outlets that talks about it if Fatal Frame 6 gets announced for the Switch.
I know. I'm gonna flip out. I mean, like, or they could even port
You heard
Fatal
it here
Frame 5.
first, folks.
Lotus Prince will flip out.
Yeah, that's true. It's happened. No, but they could also port Fatal Frame 5. Like, why not? Like, just bring it over. Like, there are very few games that are still... like locked onto the Wii U, and Fatal Frame 5 is one of them. Did Wonderful, like, I think Wonderful 101 is still also locked on Wii U, and like Mario Maker.
I believe it is. Yeah,
Mario Maker. There's a 3DS version, but yeah.
Wonderful 101. What an odd game to think about right now. I guess if this is the only reason why, like, because it's one of the only games that's locked to the Wii U.
Like, well, that's the thing. It's like, what's only on the Wii U? Like, because, like, who's gonna think of Devil's Third except for, like, what didn't make it to the Switch? Like, what's only on the Wii U? Like, the weird stuff and Mario Maker. Stuff
that's didn't do quite well enough to be worth porting over, but is, like, just good enough that it's actually expensive to port over.
Yeah, right? Freaking Devil's Third. There's a, like... That's a game.
Yep.
Never mind whatever you were about to say. Like, yeah, Devil's Third. I don't know, man.
I'm so confused that I had a thought and then it just like disappeared out of my head.
When is the Nintendo Switch gonna get a Batman Arkham City Armored Edition or whatever it was called? Where those electric gloves?
That's extremely specific.
Yeah, why won't they get Wii U version of Mass Effect 3? Wouldn't that be great?
Or any version.
Yeah. But I want to see the extra electric gloves exclusive to the Wii U in Batman Arkham City.
So anyway,
let's change the subject. All right. So, is there anything anybody else wanted to bring up about Pokemon Let's Go?
No, I think we can let's go ahead and move on.
Hey, what a segue. But yeah, this is a topic that we've discussed before, but there's a couple of new-ish contexts for it, and that is the subject of censorship. Now, we had brought up, for example, like, I think it was Nekopara and Senran Kagura before, and like there's a new Senran Kagura coming out that I think Sony of America is influencing Sony of Japan. I think it might be that to like censor the game, and like their reason was like global standards, even though it doesn't make sense because Nintendo and PC like have uncensored versions of games in the same part of the globe. So that's a bullshit excuse, like unless you want to cater to a particular country's interest or something. But the thing is, even outside of all that context, like Senran Kagura is a cheesecake game. Like, it's a boob game and you're censoring the boobs. It's like, I know that that kind of thing is not for kids, but like, kids aren't buying this. Like, those kinds of games like this and Nekopara and other stuff like that, they have a pretty specific audience. So the only thing that censoring is going to do is irritate the only people who would have bought the game anyway. So it just seems like an odd decision.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree that it's like an odd decision because that's the whole point of the game. But like, I'm torn. Like, I've played the Senran Kagura games, and I find like the gameplay is fun enough, let's say.
Yeah.
But when you really think about it, like people who are complaining a lot about that, technically they're underage girls. And
that is
it's just
true.
it's a weird situation to be in. Like I'm all for like not censoring things when they don't need to be, just because of the standards. You're gonna end up changing the standards then, and people are gonna be censoring things left and right if they know they can censor stuff. But like, these are girls who are like, it's not just that they look young. Like, in the game, they're supposed to be like middle school students.
Yeah, I know that like a couple of them are like young even for that game's standards too.
Yeah,
it's like,
and like you're supposed to you see them like boobs bouncing, and there's a touching mini game in the one that was removed, and it's just
there was even
it's tough.
Like, I think
I'm
they were
torn.
in like the Vita and the PS. The PS3 didn't have one, did it? Like PS4 maybe, but like the Vita one did, and it was like well, I mean, this is what I talked about with Vice before. It's like, I'm not touching that part of the game, but like, censorship on principle irritates me, but that's a very good point considering the context of who the characters are. So it's like, but so, but just what weirds me out though is that this system is having it censored and that one isn't. So it's like, I would imagine people would go toward the uncut games because they're uncut.
I feel like this happened once before. I can't remember. Maybe it was BMX XXX. It was like something really random. Where like Nintendo very specifically was the only company that wanted the uncensored version of it because they were trying to like get rid of their image. Like, because Nintendo isn't known for being draconian because they're known for being heavy-handed with censorship per se. They're known for being heavy-handed in terms of like control of their IP and what like they're allowed. And what they allow on their consoles, which tends to go hands in hand. But when they decided they wanted to go grab the older gamer market, they were happy to like bring these games in and like let them be whatever they are. The same thing is true for like the couple of Senran Kagura games. Even though if I'm not mistaken, the ones that come out for Nintendo were supposed to be like quote unquote the serious ones, and the ones that come out for the Vita are supposed to be like the PSN properties are supposed to be like the goofy like titty games basically. So I think it's I can't remember. I'm sure it was some like very poorly sourced website where I read this originally, but like that's why the Vita and like the PS Network gets like the the Beach Bash one and the like the cooking one, and
that's right, yeah,
and the 3DS has like the brawler,
Yeah, the 3DS had the brawler, but like what was it? The Vita did have the cooking rhythm game, but it also had like an almost Dynasty Warriors style game where you could run out of enemies. The PS4 and the Vita had like the 3D, like, I don't know if I'd call it brawler like the 3DS, but kind of.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like, same thing with Dead or Alive. There's regular Dead or Alive, and there's the volleyball one, and like one of them is clearly more cheesecake than the other one, but still, as a whole, you're taking the whole thing as a package.
Yeah. Are there any additional thoughts on censorship?
Well, I do want to say, so, the problem isn't necessarily, like, the Japanese companies. The problem in a lot of senses is, like, us, like, Americans.
Well, no, that's why I said, American PSN, or Sony, is, like, Sony of America is, like, getting in Japan's business.
Yeah, I remember, like, hearing a lot about this, like, some time ago, because I found out that the U.S. has... I don't know what the situation is in other countries, but we have sort of fairly straightforward criminal prosecution of child pornography in America, because it's like the one thing that you can get every American politician to agree on, thankfully.
Yeah,
so,
much.
Well, what that means is when people want to take a stand on child pornography, they take it pretty hard, And so in the States and in the U.S., and especially based on what's been legislated in the Supreme Court, we have laws to the point where anything that can be construed as child pornography, even if it's an image like a video game, possession. So we prosecute possession as though it was intent to distribute. So we So we pose very harsh penalties on even the possession of child pornography. And so there's been two recent bills that passed earlier this year called FOSTA and SESTA. One stands for Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act and Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, that are intended to allow people to bring criminal and civil lawsuits or charges against websites that enable prostitution or child pornography.
Yeah, well, actually, regarding what you said, like, even owning child pornography is assumed as the intent to distribute, but
that's what I mean.
But even if it weren't, the fact that you have it still means that you're supporting the industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, so this obviously becomes very complicated. Not that I want to sit around and try to try to produce a thought experiment where you could wind up with child pornography without intending to distribute or consume it, right? Or I don't want to make excuses for anybody. But these laws tend to have, like, significant unintended side effects. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not personally very sad that Senran Kagura is being censored. Like,
well, I know that's not the hill that I would die on. Like,
but like, we wind up in these, like, really wink wink nudge nudge situations where, like, whenever a game comes out that could be construed as child pornography in America, like, they kind of ratchet all the girls' ages up to 18, and, like, suddenly that makes it okay, but really it doesn't. Like, Danganronpa, I don't know if you've played Ultra Despair Girls, has a joke about this that I don't want to talk about because I don't want to spoil the game for either of you guys. But like you literally like blow the clothes off a little girl and she goes, "Oh, by the way, I'm 18," even though she's like a grade school.
Well, yeah, I mean, Snatcher didn't do a joke of this, but, like, there's a girl, like you scare in the shower and she comes out wearing a towel, and, like, you can see, like, her nipples through it, and she's 14, but, like, in the American version, they just changed the number to 18, so it's okay now, I guess.
So,
although, considering who your character is, it's still a creepy age difference, but, like, but never mind that.
In Art and Alico, which is also a pretty cheesecake RPG series, there's a character in the second game who's 13, and then she appears in the third game, which takes place 3 years later, and she's 18.
That's fantastic. Don't worry, it's fine. But that just reminds me of that, like, facetious like, comment I'll see on the internet every once in a while, like, making fun of people who are defending, like, that kind of material, where it's like, "No, Mom, I swear, she's like a 1,000-year-old witch, it's fine, like, who's cursed in this form." It's like, alright, like, okay. Like,
that's with a lot of the Disgaea games.
Oh, because for real, everything Nipponichi.
Like, every character in that game is like 1,000 years old, but the character really likes drawing lowly girls. So
yup, like every Nipponichi game ever. It's just, even when it's, like, not sexual, like, that just seems to be their art style. Like Yomawari didn't go in that territory at all, but everything in the game was still cute. Well, every character in that game was cute. The ghosts are fucking terrifying.
So I recall that, like, fairly recently, I think it was actually the last year or this year, Millie Bobby Brown was voted sexiest women in the world by
I remember
some
that
magazine, and
yeah,
she's,
it was like some other country's magazine, she's like
13,
14 or yeah, that was creepy as shit. Yeah.
So, and I remember a long time ago when the song Friday came out, that the first review I read of it, like, kinda was, like, leering a little bit at Rebecca Black's, like, cut-off shorts or something. Yeah. And I was this guy's probably, like, 40 years old.
Well, so, well, that's the thing. It's interesting how against child pornography everybody rightfully is, but then they pull shit like sexiest like early teenager. It's like, what are you even doing at this point?
I mean, do you remember how often you read when we were getting older about how the Olsen twins are going to be 18 soon? Yeah, it's like,
that's
what
shit,
is the point of this?
I don't remember that specifically, but I do remember like all of these. Like I've seen more of this on like Facebook and stuff. It's like, remember this child from this movie? Like, well, look at her now, and it's like, yeah, but like I'm that much older too. Like, you want to like that's creepy as shit. Like, and even if I were the same age, I'm not gonna fucking date this person. So like, why are you trying to sell me this person?
So the moral of the story is like the laws, you know, they do a really poor job of stopping the real problem, which is that in many, many ways we like fetishize young women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Like, it's what is it like? I don't know if this is quite the expression I was looking for, but like talking out both sides of their mouth.
Or, so yeah, like the law is dumb, but the game is worse.
Yeah. No, I could see that. Yeah, it's like what are we? It is one of those things where like again, I am against censorship on principle, but it's like step back for a second. What are we defending here?
Right. And I think that's why I'm torn, because I don't want them to just start censoring things, but I don't want to make arguments against it or for not censoring when it's probably something that should be censored in some way. It's tough.
Here's the thing about it, though, because from what I heard, they're doing like, this is somewhat of a new censoring technique, but you know, like the white bands or flashes of light or whatever across the screen to like cover whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like, again, if you're crossing off half the game, maybe just don't release the game. Like,
did you hear about a really interesting censorship in China about Kingdom Hearts 3?
Oh yeah,
I don't think so.
This is really weird. Like, so I'm sorry.
Damn, this must be good.
So there's a meme where the Chinese premier sorry, do you know his name?
No, but
Xi Jinping.
But he's it said that Winnie the Pooh reminds people of him.
there's a really specific picture of him, like, walking with another world leader that also looks like a picture of like Winnie the Pooh being led by Tigger. So people would post them side by side. And some guy went to like a major like Japanese convention center as him, dressed as the Premier Jinping. Dressed as Pooh,
no, that's
with
so
like
weird.
a million security guards rolling up in a limousine, like getting rid of all the cameras, taking pictures of him and everything, and it was like hilarious.
I love esoteric stuff like that.
Kingdom Hearts 3 will be released in China, but every single time that Winnie the Pooh is in it, there's gonna be a white blob censoring.
That's so incredible.
Actually, I don't think it's coming out in China at all. I think that was a promotional image, and like the website, obviously they censored all the pictures of Winnie the Pooh because they couldn't talk about
That's fucking incredible. That's amazing. That kind of like brought a smile to my face. That's fantastic.
So I saw this first on a trivia on a trivia site. It was like what beloved cartoon character was banned from China because of its resemblance supposedly to the premier.
That's
to the current president. And I just remember reading the answer and being like, wow, I really need to know the story behind this.
Yeah, and then you see like the actual like real life human. He has like a jar of honey like labeled HUNNY, like it's spelled like honey. Like
he's like, I
don't understand.
Well, it would be in kanji, but they could still be poorly spelled.
I can't believe Winnie the Pooh ripped off of him. This is ridiculous. You should pay him royalties.
It's amazing to me because I see political cartoons about the American political leader all the time, and obviously nobody has a problem with it. Nobody's taking those down off the internet en masse.
I mean, if he had the power to make it happen, he probably would, but he doesn't. Yeah. But that is still funny as hell. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, did you guys have any other things you wanted to discuss or further these topics? Oh, I just remembered. There is one thing. I never used the site, so I can't really give much of a take on it, but Tumblr apparently just banned like all of its adult content, which means most of its website, as far as I'm aware.
Well, like this is really funny because like people always think of Tumblr as like this fantasy land where all the like left-leaning people go, but like 95% of it is just like straight pornography.
Well, but what's also kind of funny is that a lot of people a lot of people who are against Tumblr make fun of it for being like that quote safe space, but now it's like the least safe space.
Sure,
it's punishing all its users.
I don't know if really that much of its content is adult only, but it's that much of its content of the known content, let's say, is adult only.
Yeah.
Because there's probably a lot of blogs on Tumblr that no one really reads because, like, someone's personal blog or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure a majority of the content is probably not pornography, but majority of the content, but the minority that gets the majority of the views is probably a lot of adult content. So in a way, it's like they're shooting themselves in the foot. Not that I care either way. I'm pretty sure all the people who are gonna be kicked off that site are gonna find somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know.
It was just like I was telling you guys.
I'm just hoping they did their research and that this is actually a good business move.
I know. No, it was just like I was telling you guys before we started recording, but like I saw a Twitter post of someone saying like, "Oh no, like Tumblr's closing its adult content. Now where am I going to find my porn? Oh right, the internet." It's like pretty much.
So like that's why this so I mean I brought up those 2 acts previously that had recently been passed, and it feels like compliance with those acts is part of why a number of websites are starting to become sort of more restrictive with what content they allow on their platforms. And so like the reason this is an issue is because like the people who really get victimized by these things, I mean I don't care if like if you know you're looking for, you know, standard, you know, everyday pornography and you have to look at one of 150 sites instead of 151, right?
Yeah.
You know, gotta catch them all, right? But the you know you
have to look under the truck for that 451st.
Oh boy. So in the YouTube example, the problem is like a power imbalance. Like the people who really get victimized by these kinds of laws are like are the most marginalized. So like I don't know if you remember this a while ago, but like a lot of videos that just mention content that had to deal with the LGBT community were getting demonetized on YouTube because all you do is tag it as tag lesbian, tag gay, and it gets flagged as mature content. And Tumblr, you know, they put a producer's letter out saying that this is specifically intended to prevent people from distributing child pornography, which is, you know, a very noble goal. But the concern is, like, if you read the moderation policies on, like, Facebook, on YouTube, and presumably now on Tumblr, they tend not to do a very good job of addressing, like you're mostly delivering your complaints to either, like, outsource people who are not American, and or to, like, white people, basically, who are just not bothered by the same thing. So, like, on Facebook, if you say, like, men are trash, most of the time you'll get banned. So it doesn't really make sense. It seems like a pretty I'm not saying that I advocate these kinds of beliefs. Like I sometimes I feel like I belong in the garbage, but I wouldn't go around talking about Facebook.
Everybody. Regarding what you brought up earlier, though, saying like the purpose of this is to reduce child pornography, like for the moderation. Were you referring to like the tags on YouTube of like gay and lesbian or whatever, or was that just a different subject?
I'm not sure exactly what you have to do. Just that there was a swath of YouTubers who put up what seemed like, you know, controversial but not provocative. You know,
because I was gonna say like equating like LGBTQ with like heinous crimes is like offensive all by itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what the threshold is. I want to be very precise.
Yeah, exactly. This is not something you want to get wrong.
But like this is so there was like a Facebook guideline document that was leaked some time ago, and for example, it was shown that if you say like she's a terrible female newscaster, then that's not considered sexist because part of the complaint is that she's bad at her job, and that's not protected. So like they take the you know the least offensive part of it and ignore the rest of it, and and so you always have plausible deniability in that case, and that tends to be how these things are arbitrated. So that always tends to work against the favor of like people who really need these free platforms to form communities, and so it tends to be very dangerous.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, I mean, people figure this stuff out really quickly because internet. There's always someone to figure it out, so it becomes very easy to go after people and just hide behind the like, oh no, I swear, it was just talking about like the job and nothing else. I just threw in the word female for decoration or something. It's just like, okay.
Even before the internet, people are always trying to find excuses. Like, they want to say they're blatantly sexist, racist, whatever opinion, and want to have a backup to excuse that what they're doing is okay for whatever reason. Originally, it was just because it was okay to be racist. But now that it's not okay.
In the 40s, like, fuck it, just go.
But now that it's not okay, you have to say something racist and then back it up with the reason why that wasn't actually racist.
Yeah.
And
but
people
inevitably,
are
the
getting
reason
better
is
at
always
that.
just that it was racist.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not racist, but, like, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my opinion on Tumblr.
Yeah.
I don't actually have a Tumblr.
Yeah, I've never really
I know that we
used
do
it.
we do the outro all the time. I don't think any of us actually have a Tumblr.
Nope.
Yeah,
but
that's why I was
that was
hesitant to bring it up. It's like, so here's a Tumblr thing that I don't know about.
Yeah.
Anybody use
But it's
Tumblr?
just the
No?
basic
Okay.
idea. It's the idea of censorship in general, like that.
Yeah.
It's been going around a lot lately, I think.
No, but it just makes me think of that one Simpsons episode where they were walking through it was like a printing company or like a comic book, like a newspaper comic producing like factory or whatever, and they're walking by this one room, and it goes, and now, how many of you read Mary Worth? And everyone just kind of stares. It's like, well, okay, moving on. And you see like the cartoonist just like, oh, just like slump. It's just like, it's so depressing. So yeah, that was our discussion of Tumblr basically, because we don't have Tumblr.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many of us actually have a Tumblr? Oh, well, okay. Did you
Well,
hear that
you know,
news?
it was a good discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were still able to talk about the general idea anyway. It's just like, I can't talk about like, oh, my Tumblr account has been affected. Like, I have seen some people on Twitter who
this is just saying that if Lotus had a Tumblr account, it would be full of porn.
Yeah, okay. no, but I have seen some people on Twitter though where like Tumblr is apparently painting in very broad strokes. So like pictures that are like of skeletons, but it's like, it's not pictures of like actual human skeletons. It's like of like depictions of like art with like I saw like a death holding scythe and an hourglass. It looked badass.
Well, that was another thing.
It's like, man, all right.
A part of this, I think we've hit most of the topics here, but with this Tumblr censorship, they still said it's okay if the nudity is because it's artistic, like classical art, let's say, not just because you could say any.
Well, I saw like a ProZD video of this, which is the first way I heard about the language of the law, where it was like female presenting nipples, male presenting nipples, and it's like, what fucking robot wrote that? Like, it just sounds so weird.
Like medical Tumblrs are okay, and like art Tumblrs where it's obviously art and not pornography art kind of thing.
But that raises a whole other question.
The female presenting nipples thing was weird. Like, they specifically banned that, which is like, so Instagram has the same problem. You know, that like once you start getting into like the trans communities, for example, the concept of what a female presenting nipple is like becomes a lot more clear.
I saw a comic that made fun of this. It showed like a fat man and woman at the beach, and like their breasts were both drawn like intentionally exactly the same with like a basic curved line, and like it was like talking to the woman, like that's so indecent when like if you zoomed in on both of them, you literally could not tell the difference.
Right. So there was like a Free the Nipple campaign on Instagram as a result of this some time ago, and I'm sure Tumblr is now heading in the same direction because they're making the same mistake.
Well, not to mention though, even distinguishing between art and not, it's like you're still seeing the same shit. Like, who cares?
And it's like, who makes this distinction? Like, I don't know if you remember. So there's that really famous book, the Bell Curve, that a lot of racists use to justify.
I've heard of it. But...
It was written by this guy Charles Murray, like some time ago. It's really famous because it claims to show that like black people perform worse at most measures of intelligence than white people, and it's a horrible book full of all kinds of like scientific inaccuracies that I won't like tear into right now, but don't read it and don't take it seriously. He also wrote a book that attempted to show the same thought process, but to show that all like major cultural achievements have come from Western civilization. So he wrote a second, like even more racist book. Well, no, actually, and he started by saying like everything that was written before 1950, that's classical. Everything after, garbage.
Okay.
You know, so like when you say that we're gonna call some things art, especially classical art, then like who the fuck gets to make that distinction? Like,
speaking of making the distinction though, regarding what you were saying about the first book, like people measuring to intelligence standards or whatever, that reminds me of that like motivational poster, like Einstein, I think it was Einstein quote, where it said that like if like you measure a fish's success by its ability to climb trees, then it'll always think it's a failure. And like like read the Room. Like actually in one of my classes,
don't read the Room. You know, don't watch the Room. It's pretty bad.
No, you should watch it. But like in one of my classes, actually, I had taught this essay that's about, like, the author is half Hispanic, half Caucasian, because she has, like, a Puerto Rican I forgot, one of her parents was Puerto Rican and the other was like white American, and but like she made a point of how like different cultures have different standards of beauty. So she was considered like dead sexy in one, but like oh, you're overweight in the other. But like she made an interesting point though at the very end of her essay, which was something like it was like something about like fitting your body through like American doors or something like that, where like you might not think about it, but like door frames aren't built like 8 feet tall because we're not all basketball players. So like similarly, they're like door frames are based on the average person of this particular region's height and weight. So like if someone doesn't fit that criterion, then it might be like, oh, you're overweight or you're underweight or you're too tall or you're too short. But it's like, by whose standards though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a long time ago, like the feminine standard of beauty was that you were what would now be considered to be extremely overweight, because that meant that your family was very wealthy and like
oh yeah, sure, yeah,
so,
you
like,
can eat, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even heard I've like of old style civilizations where it was considered a sign of success to not know how to like basically live your life because you have servants to take care of shit for you. Like even this includes being like I don't know if it was full on being literate, but being able to like being good at it, like, you know, and stuff like that, or like doing math or whatever. It's like I don't need to know that, but it's like by today's standards, it's like, well, you're proud of being dumb then. So it's like like even the time like is a measure of.
Well, I think to some extent that's still quite timely in like today's, you know.
No, I do understand. I do understand that, but like I think there's a different context behind that I'd prefer not to go into at this particular time. But like, the point is though, like the racist guy with his bell curve book or whatever. It's like I don't like you, therefore I think you aren't as good as me. It's like, well, who saw that coming? I can't imagine. You know, like what are the odds of that?
So anyway, that's sort of my final thoughts on the matter. That's always the issue, is that like
that's my thoughts on Senran Kagura.
When you pass these laws, you're giving, you know, a very small subset of people like a lot of power to make these decisions. When that's not who you want making these decisions. I'm sure we have some of our listeners from prior or existing fascist countries who will be happy to tell us all about how bad censorship is.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is, if you have a small amount of people making decisions for you, then you would hope at the very least that those people are representative of the community, because otherwise they're making decisions for themselves, you know, and you're just kind of over there. So like you I mean, because like in America's like ancient history, like politicians, once they were out of wherever they worked, like the White House or Congress or wherever the hell, they would go back like on the farm, like where they lived for a couple of years, and see how those laws actually affected them. But like now we got people living in bubbles, so it's kind of like it doesn't have the same effect. So like things may or may not work, and you just kind of hope they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but anyway,
Christmas is coming up soon.
I'm glad we could leave this podcast
Hanukkah's
off on a
coming
high
up
note.
now.
So how about that really shitty PSN Classic?
Oh, the PS1 Classic. Yeah, remember
PS1 Classic.
Yeah,
wow,
remember that time those PAL games were not your pal.
Yeah, it was such a weird thing to do. I feel like, so Nintendo was mentioned that they released their classics because they needed a stopgap before the Switch came out, because they knew it was coming out, but they didn't have anything to hold people over until then, so they released those. I think this is just like, I like Sony, but this is definitely them just trying to latch on to the success of those systems
and
where
not
they
understand
really
what made it successful.
Right. Like, I actually don't think that the games they chose were bad. I thought there was some pretty decent selection. Maybe not the best, but it was a good selection of PS1 games.
Yeah, I agree.
But because either they couldn't get the rights to the actual games that they wanted to release, or the person who was searching for they decided they're going to emulate, and the person who was searching for the ROMs just picked the first one that came up, even if it was PAL, and it's like, cool, we got one, let's emulate this. And they picked the PAL ones.
Just that is like a spectacular fuck up though. Like, how do you
and
do
it's like
that?
It's like I don't think it's the PAL emulator, but still, it's a lot of games are running on really shitty frame rates. Some games, like music, doesn't even work. It's really weird that
it's emulated badly,
that this got to this far.
And by the way, this is something that I think I had mentioned the last time we discussed this topic, but just to bring it back, the Nintendo Classic, like the NES, worked because it was the first of its kind, and everyone's like, oh damn, look at this, like we can relive our Nintendo days, and like I could play it on a TV and show my kid or whatever. The SNES Classic worked because it had some really hard to find games on there, and also it had Star Fox 2 for the first time officially released ever, so like you might want to get the SNES Classic just for that to see what it's like. The PS1 Classic, I mean, I'm not expecting it to bring back some hidden gem, but one thing that I do feel was a a missed opportunity was not giving America the complete Persona 1. We just got like the actual old American release of Persona 1 with, I think I heard it had changed music and it's like missing a whole dungeon, and to be fair, that dungeon is stupid hard.
It's a whole nother like game. Like, you know how you were talking about Persona 2 was 2 games?
Yeah, it's 2 games.
The secret dungeon in 1 is basically a whole separate game.
Yeah, like the thing with the secret dungeon is like at this point, like I read about it in college. So this was at least a decade ago, so I don't even remember what I read. But I remember I had found it on some list of like top 10 hardest things or dungeons in video games or whatever, and one of them was Persona 1, and I was like, I don't know anything about Persona 1, but I'll read this. And I just remember as I was reading it, it just sounded more and more nightmarish. It's just like, there's no fucking way I'm playing this. Now the PSP game restored that dungeon, I believe, but like it would have been cool to like, because I mean I think Japan PS1 Classic got Persona as well, so it would have been a really cool move to like, for the first time, give America a complete PS1 Persona 1.
But I mean, that just highlights the exact problem that you're talking about. In that, like sure. So to give another analogy, like Magic the Gathering does this all the time with their anthologies, in that they know they're going to make one every year. So if they're, they make this one called From the Vault, which is like 20 very special cards, and usually like a couple of them are really hard to find, or they've never been in foil before, and they're really exciting. And the rest are just like crap, because you have to save all the other cool stuff because you intend to do this every year. So from Nintendo, they every time they roll out one of these collections, there's like always Super Mario, there's always Mario Brothers, there's always Urban Champion in these stupid
Urban Champion.
But like it's okay for one, because at least in the past, these were all in like re-release cycles where they weren't backwards or forwards compatible with anything.
Yeah.
And they were doing it at a time where they were discontinuing the Wii U Virtual Console, and the Switch didn't have its online service. So if you didn't buy the NES Classic, that was your only option unless you wanted to buy some old hardware. For Persona 1, you can go on the PSN right now and buy Shin Megami Tensei Persona, the
better version too,
and just play it. Like,
well, not only that, but regarding what you were saying with some of these games, not all of them. Persona 1 is expensive if you want to go out and buy the disc, but like for a lot of these PS1 games, like an actual PS1 is $20. Like, and a lot of the games that they put on it, again, not all by a long shot, but like a bunch of them are pretty cheap. So like you could just do that and successfully play it. And like you said, PSN also makes it very easy. Like you could have gotten some of the the SNES stuff on PSN, I think, but like it was like you were saying that the Wii U was down, so Earthbound was kind of in flux for a little bit, and like Star Fox 2 you couldn't get anywhere legally. Like that was a big deal.
And also like even if you are doing this year over year and you just want this to basically be a $20 ROM compilation more or less, you would think that you would do it in such a way that you are leading with your best foot forward. Like in the Magic example, in their first From the Vault set, they actually put in a card that hadn't been released yet and wasn't going to come out until the next set. So you had something that you couldn't get, and it was actually like a really cool like dragon. It was like one of the biggest and most powerful dragons they'd ever released. It actually showed up in Vintage at one point. I think it was that powerful as like a reanimation target.
Was this From the Vault Dragons?
Yes, it was From the Vault Dragons.
I might actually have that.
It actually, so like the other dragons weren't that exciting, so it wasn't really that expensive.
Yeah, I remember one of them was fucking like, it was like the dragon whelp. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
that had to be a troll move.
A couple of them are always like really underwhelming. But when you
but it's like this, From the Vault, and it's like the 0-1 creature. Fuck off.
Like this like PSN collection. Like what in there is like that you can't easily get on like just PSN regularly.
Well, that's on PS3 and PS4. It's like just go. Yeah.
So I understand, like, of course, if you want a gift for somebody who doesn't have a console, like, consoles are expensive. Like, they're not as expensive as they used to be, but if you don't have $200 for a console, like, it's not a bad idea to buy a PSN Classic, for
But the thing is, too, like, if you're going to get this for someone because they don't have a console, PS1 games didn't really hold up as well as getting them a Nintendo Classic, one of the Nintendo system classics, in a way.
Well, yeah, the SNES Classic I get ahead of the NES Classic, because a lot of NES games didn't age too well either, but still.
And like Pyro,
I get your point.
Well, yeah, like Pyro said, though, like on the NES and SNES, the games, like, not only do they age better, but like you were saying about the PS1 Classic, they actually run properly. Like, if they don't run properly, then it's like, what are you doing?
We probably wouldn't even be having this conversation and like shitting on Sony so much if it actually ran really well.
Yeah, like, again, with the wrong regions, that's going to cause like speed problems, like 5/6 the speed versus slightly too fast if you're in PAL territories getting NTSC versions of games. So,
something to take away from like all of the reports that Vice always gives in Recon about the new games that get ported to the Switch or to other platforms is that like they're always the definitive version, and there's like a really good reason to buy this iteration because they are the best version of that game. Like Outrun 2 weeks ago or last week, whatever it was.
Yeah,
that's like the best version of Outrun that you're going to get until at least the next time they make Outrun, and even that's not necessarily guaranteed.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. Like, Vice does not report when it's like, hey, guess what, guys? Super Mario Brothers is on Switch too. It's like, okay, like he talks about when the good stuff's out, or when the good versions of the stuff is out,
or when there's an interesting lesson to be learned that for why these things don't happen very often, like when they put Super Mario Brothers in the Game Boy. And, like, it sucked because you can't fit a whole NES screen on a Game Boy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's why, like, Mega Man on the Game Boy was, like, incredibly hard because you can't see that far ahead of you. And it's Mega Man. Like, it's based on projectiles.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so it's like, I actually just played through all the Game Boy Mega Man games earlier this year.
Oh, wow.
And it is, like, really jarring because, all of the Robot Masters are exactly the same as they were, more or less, in the original NES games, except for Mega Man 5 on the Game Boy. And so you're stuck on a screen which is like 2/3 of the size of the NES screen, but having to try to have the same fight. So like your room for dodging has
dodging Airman's tornadoes or whatever. It's like, oh no. That's a real test of skill right there. It's not even. It's almost not skill. It's almost just like brute forcing it until you get a successful run.
So that's my thoughts on the PSN Classic and Game Boy Mega Man games.
Yeah, like the PS1 Classic
since you're gonna ask.
The PS1 Classic, I mean, it was a legitimately good idea, but like it's largely redundant, and what OldManStompy was alluding to earlier is it's kind of like the worst version of some of these games, or at least are like just the same version that you could have gotten for like $5 or $10 on PSN. Like, not to mention, like people were one thing I thought was kind of funny was people were complaining about a lack of like Parasite Eve because Japan got Parasite Eve, but you can get Parasite Eve on PSN. Like,
yeah.
I remember, like, this is going back to the opposite side when I was leaning more, like, toward Sony's side when the system wasn't quite out yet and against the people complaining. Because, like, it was like, what? Why don't you have Xenogears? It's like, you had 10 fucking years to buy Xenogears, and you still can, and it's $10. Like, what are you complaining? Like, you can buy whenever you want. Like, it's stuff like that. Or why didn't they get Tony Hawk? Yeah, why didn't Sony license the rights of 100 different people and music? I can't believe they didn't do that. It's like, dude, think about it. Although one thing that really was weird, though, was that there was no Spyro, because this was, like, right before the Spyro Reignited trilogy.
Which makes sense. It makes complete sense that they would not have released it on the system because the new one was coming out. So I don't really...
I guess to be fair, the new game is literally... It's not like the Resident Evil remake. It is the identical game with... But with like better everything except load times.
That just makes the decision to make the PSN Classic now, the PS1 Classic now, look even worse because like that's the whole point. Is that why would you buy anything on the PSN? Like half of it is on the PSN right now, and like the one thing that isn't on there, they just made like they're two of their biggest franchises just got re-released, and they're probably going to get packaged together in sales all the time for the holidays. So like, who is this for? What was the point?
Yeah, like I'm with Lotus where when they first announced it and they first announced the games even, I'm like, this sounds cool. I mean, I'd love for someone to be able to pick up a PS1, whether because that was their time period or they wanted to show someone what cool games were out there.
But even if it wasn't
well, either way, like even if it wasn't the best games, even if it wasn't like whatever, even if it may have been a little cheaper to actually get the games on PSN, because there's something to be said about having a small PlayStation that you can basically fit in your hand.
That is true.
Whatever.
It is very small, yeah.
But they just like shit in a bag basically by making like this poor decision of how they're going to do this. If the games ran well, I think it would have disappeared into obscurity. Like people who thought it was cool would have bought it. People who didn't think it was cool would have just said nothing about it. You wouldn't hear anything of it after it came out. But because it runs like crap, now people are telling them how bad of a job they did.
And it's amazing, by the way, that it runs like crap, considering that there have been really solid PS1 emulators for a very long time.
I heard that they're actually even using an emulator that you can find on the computer, like on the internet, I mean.
Yeah, I heard they were using an old emulator. Like, I don't know about the quality of one emulator to another, but like, I emulated PS1 games in college before I got a PS1, and there were some exceptions with games that had weird effects. It's kind of like you know how the SD to SNES flash cartridge, it can now, but you know how at first it couldn't really handle games that used the FX chip, like Yoshi's Island or whatever. There were some games like that on PS1 where they had like, I remember trying Tales of Destiny where like it had like a shimmering heat effect in the background of a desert, and the emulator looked all fucked up for that. But for the most part, the games ran just fine, like in 2007, so I don't know why they're having trouble now. From Sony itself, you'd think that no one would be better than they would.
Probably because they wanted to put the least amount of effort that they needed to get this to go out by the holidays. Yeah.
But I mean, like, the least amount of effort would be copying and pasting the fucking emulator that everyone already has.
Yeah, actually, that wouldn't be, because they would have to, like, the least amount of effort is Google PlayStation emulator, download the first one you see.
That's true.
And then find out what games you don't need the rights to, Google those, download the ROMs for that, and just hope everything works.
Like that really is embarrassing though. Like you know what I genuinely would like to see though would be like I want them to try it again. I would like them to do like a PS2 Classic, and like I know that like Sony can never emulate PS2, right? Like even the PS3 basically had a PS2 built inside of it, which is why that worked. But like you're getting some PS2 games on PlayStation Network, so there's something to be said there. Or they could even make the PS2 Classic like an actual PS2 but smaller if they know how to do that. But like I would just love to see an American release of Siren 2. I know this is one subject I keep coming back to and I'm the only one who cares, but like that would be something that would actually get me to buy it. Like I would like to see a game that I couldn't otherwise get relatively easily.
I'll contact my friends at Sony and let them know.
No, I know. I mean, like, I'm not talking about, like, when I say games I could get easily, I mean, there are a lot of games in America that are, like, hundreds of dollars. I don't mean those, but I mean, like, if you want a PS2 game, for the most part, it's not going to, like, shatter the bank, but, like, Forbidden Siren just doesn't work in America, even if you have a swap disc. So, like, if they release that to the States, that'd be incredible.
I mean, that would be their Star Fox 2, right? Basically,
it would. I mean, that game was already out, but for Americans, it would be amazing. Well, for me, it would be amazing.
Except Star Fox is actually like a recognizable IP to the average
I know. Actually, you know
what?
I thought
you've never heard of Siren before?
Yeah, I know.
I have just now.
No, you know what I thought was ironic though is that like Siren, I think is more like it's a Japanese game, but I think it like leaned more to Europe than America anyway. But what I thought was kind of funny was that you can get Siren on PSN and not Siren 2. If you could, I would have gotten it a long time ago. But last time I checked, maybe things have changed, I don't know, but last time I checked, Siren was available on American PSN, but not Europe. So I was like, what? It was just a strange thing to me. I mean, European people can get it easily enough if they want to, but it's just like, that's odd.
I just want to, since we kind of blew past it a little bit, I want to applaud Pyro for the visual image of, like, Sony having to download their own ROMs from the internet as part of their exercise of
the wrong ones.
Constructing the PSN Classic. They're like, well, we'll never find the original versions of these games. I guess we burned all of our Tumblr porn over these CDRs.
Well, it turns out the whole reason this worked is that like, Nintendo's draconian, stomping of Emu Paradise, it was all a ploy to sabotage the PS1 Classic the whole time. We just had no idea. Damn, Nintendo, you're a wily one.
That is a great fan fiction that probably won't be taken down from Tumblr if you as canon.
Like, what a genius and petty move that would have been. Mm. But anyway, did any of you guys have any additional thoughts?
I think we covered it all.
Thank you.
All right. So that is the show for this week. Please to remember, I'm good at this. I'm good at reading. I'm good at video games. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement keeps the show going. You can also catch us on Thursday for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. Finally, you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, even though I just said finally already, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or even getting on a Discord chat with me and other patrons, perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
I want to first applaud you for not talking about Vice, even though he's not here.
Yeah, I realize I've been doing that a lot. Time for Vice's Way, and oops, he's not here. Funny every time.
I thought that was next. I thought that was the next episode.
It is, but I won't do it the next episode.
I've been PyroJackFrost, and you can find me as PyroJackFrost or Cloud08540 because I probably won't be changing my name because PSN's gonna either charge me an arm and a leg or make me lose all my saved games on PSN, Steam, and Battle.net.
And you can find me as OldManStompy in most major gaming and social media networks, and also as my login name on WWENetwork.com, just so I can get my one wrestling reference in this week since we didn't talk about
There you go. Get that name branding out there.
Right, you can't do anything. You can't do anything on the network knowing my name, but like it doesn't matter. But there it is.
Well, now you know. OldManStompy's out there. He's watching you. Maybe, probably not. He's probably watching wrestling instead. So, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers.